This day is the day, a bad luck's always coming my way.
For today's Grimm adventure, we find ourselves at one of the most famous filming locations in Hollywood history, a place known as Vasquez Rocks. Today we're going to track down the filming locations to the 1935 Universal movie known as Werewolf of London. It's not the first werewolf movie, but it's considered to be the very first mainstream werewolf movie, and it has a different tale, a different tale. That was unintended.
You must seize the only specimen of the Mariposa plant in England. That flower is the only known antidote for werewolfery.
A very interesting folk tale, but of no value to the police.
I warn you, sir, unless you secure this plant, there'll be an epidemic that will turn London into a shambles.
When my experiments are completed, I will show their results to the entire world. Not before.
Remember this, Dr. Glendon. The werewolf instinctively seeks to kill the thing it loves best.
Basically, here's the story. A botanist and his friend travel to Tibet in search of a very rare flower that only grows, that only flourishes in the moonlight. It's a plant known as Mariposa lupino lumino.
We're looking for the Mariposa lupino lumino, strange flower which grows only in Tibet and which it is said takes its life from the moon.
Now here's the thing about this. It doesn't cure werewolfery, but it turns out that this special plant that only grows in the moonlight, come on, it's a werewolf movie, it aids, it helps the inflicted, people who turn into werewolves, it helps suppress it. This is where Hollywood chose to film the Tibetan scenes. I guess you can say that this was Universal's return to Vasquez Rocks. The first time they were here, they filmed Dracula, the opening scenes to Dracula. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. The Dracula with Bela Lugosi. But this place here has a very interesting Universal Jack Pierce lore, if you will. Now, if you're a fan of Universal monster movies, then the name Jack Pierce probably rings a bell. He's the man responsible for the makeup for Frankenstein's monster. Well, he was the makeup designer, if you will, the makeup artist on the Werewolf of London. And he had a reputation for being somebody who was really hard to work with. And that on top of the fact that people in his chair would often sit there for hours, and Jack Pierce would actually glue actual animal hair and other things onto the actors, which was extremely painful and hard to get off. And the main character, the guy who played Henry Hall, his last name is Glendon, he wasn't having it. So he went above Jack Pierce's head, which pissed him off, and convinced the higher ups to not do Jack Pierce's makeup the way that Jack Pierce wanted to do it, which is how we get that very, I call it like the teenage werewolf ate my homework kind of werewolf makeup. Now, fun thing about this, Jack Pierce actually got his way a little bit later on. The way that you see the Wolfman in the movie The Wolfman by Universal, that was how the werewolf in Werewolf of London was supposed to look. And the last time that I climbed this was for the Dracula video. And that was a feat. I was out of breath, and I'm kind of out of breath now, getting some exercise in. Now, I don't want to bog you guys down with a whole bunch of information. I want to show you guys the film sites, the locations, lining up shots. But one more thing, Werewolf of London. Sound familiar? John Landis is an American Werewolf in London. Supposedly, this was the inspiration for it. But after watching the movie, I'm a firm believer that it wasn't the inspiration for the plot of American Werewolf in London, but it definitely got its name from that, Werewolf of London. But it did inspire Warren Zevon's song of the same name, Werewolves of London. In fact, earlier, I think I saw a werewolf walking through the rocks with a Chinese menu in his hand. Right after the very long opening credits, the kind of credits that you see in those old-timey movies back in the 30s, we get a shot of a map, and the camera zooms in on the word Tibet. And then the first shot we get of the movie is of this rock formation right here. Now the camp would have been right in about the foreground of your screen, but you can make out the formation of the rocks, the points, everything. In fact, if I climb a little bit up on the rock and look down at the parking lot, you get a really good shot of where the camp was. Now, Vasquez Rocks is a very famous filming location. Movies were filmed here, TV shows were filmed here, music videos, commercials. In fact, Grimm Life Collective, we've done a video here on the original Dracula movie with Bela Lugosi. We were here for Army of Darkness, and now we're here for Werewolf of London. Right after the establishing shot, the very next scene we get is of the characters talking. And the people from Tibet aren't even talking the language of Tibet. They're actually speaking Cantonese. And the main character, believe it or not, he's just speaking gibberish. So if you watch the movie and you're familiar with these languages, you're going to have absolutely no idea what they're saying unless you can speak Cantonese.
What will you do if they won't go?
In order to line up the shots perfectly, it looks like we'd have to be a little bit higher than where we are right now. Almost like a crane shot. But it's right here where you see the holy man coming down from the mountain on horseback, this pathway right here. You can see the rock formation on the left, as well as this curved, almost like a side of a donut rock on the right-hand side in the shot. And off in the distance, the main landmark from Vasquez Rocks.
Pax vobiscum, my sons.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
You're both English, are you not?
Yes, Father.
Another landmark to point out to show that we're in the right spot is that V right up there at the top of the peak. You can see that behind the holy man as he's talking. Now, fun fact, fun Grimm life fact, that's the peak I climbed in our Dracula video. The one that kind of made everybody dizzy, including myself, and Jessica, yeah, it makes her nervous every time I go out. And in another shot from a different angle, you see this rock formation behind the holy man as he's talking as well.
You two are the first I've seen in 40 years.
My name is Glendon. This is my assistant, Hugh Rennick. We're botanists.
Oh, he's a botanist. I'm a nobody he brought along out of kindness.
During the conversation, this is where the main characters find out or realize that, yes, they are in the right spot for this very rare flower. And it's got to be just off the trail over the ridge. This is the ridge.
According to this map, it's just beyond that ridge, just off the trail. You game?
Wish us luck, Father.
Get the ponies.
Right.
The main shot of them walking along the ridge is taken from right about here. It's actually a pretty cool shot. Right now I'm standing down where the camp was, looking up at the rocks. But just like this. So right there about the center of your screen is where all of that took place. And that's where they're standing saying that the flower is right over the ridge, just off the path. Now, in all actuality, from this point on, all the filming moves over to this side of Vasquez Rocks. I'm seeing these giant birds flying around. And believe it or not, I've already seen 3 coyotes, wild coyotes, crossing the road in front of me. Not like directly in front of me, but I don't know, maybe about 20 yards ahead. But I am the only person out here and it is peaceful. Now the road that I'm walking on right now can be seen in another video we did, like I said, on Dracula. The very opening shots of Dracula. 1932, the stagecoach is the same road right here. In fact, in that video, there's a rock that can be seen in front of the matte painting. That's up here on the left-hand side. It's what I call the Dracula rock. The opening shot to Dracula is right here. Now you can see the mountains off in the distance. That was a matte painting. Well, in the movie, they created a matte painting so you couldn't see that. But that rock is here, as well as the cliffside on the right-hand side. And this is where the stagecoach can be seen. Now, it is rumored or speculated that that scene, the stagecoach, wasn't really shot for Dracula. That instead, back then, they were making a whole bunch of Westerns, so it was like stock footage. Now, I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but I just wanna show it because we're walking right past it. But if you wanna see our Dracula filming location video, it's in the description below. If you're a fan of the Evil Dead movies, more specifically Army of Darkness, then this should look familiar. The same road as Dracula, the same road that we're on for Werewolf of London. This is the pathway, the road that Ash would have taken in Army of Darkness in search of the Necronomicon. Again, we did a video on that. More locations than Vasquez Rocks, but if you want to see that, again, link is in the description below. Basically, where we're going is on the back side of the peak that can be seen in Army of Darkness on the left. Just a couple more shots from the movie. And then once they find the flower and the werewolf attack happens, that's all on a set, on a stage, like a sound stage. Movie magic. In some sort of Hollywood way, I feel a certain kind of connection with this movie, because the main characters, they say, think of all the things that they had to go through in order to get to where they are now to find this flower. It's kind of the same way with filming locations. They also say they had to keep climbing in order to get to the flower, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Now, that dirt patch down there, that is the parking lot where we first started. In fact, you can see our car, our Grimm mobile, right there. That giant rock formation on the right, that is the famous landmark here at Vasquez Rocks. But our next location is this right here. You can see there's like a natural tunnel, a natural walkway through the rock.
Think of all the trouble we've been through these past 6 months, just for the sake of a little flower.
Yes, but it's the only one of its kind in the whole world. We're going to go on climbing.
I always find it really interesting when it comes to Hollywood and movie magic. Things appear so much bigger on screen, but in real life, they're actually really small. Now, if I position myself right over here, let's see, right about there, pay attention to that rock, that boulder that's right there on the other side on the ground, as well as this line right there. While the characters walk through this, they actually use that line, that little crack, that crevice, as a balancing point in the movie.
I say, Glenn. What? I can't move. Something's holding my feet.
Nonsense.
Lift them.
Come on.
Here's another fun tidbit piece of Grimm information. This scene, you also hear a wolf howling in the distance. In order to accomplish that, they actually used the main character, Henry Hall's actual voice, pretending to howl like a wolf. Mix that with an actual howl of a timber wolf, and that's the sound that you hear.
Hello. All right now? Seem to be.
Now, I am 6'2", and in order for me to get through this, I kind of have to crouch down. But the next location is right on the other side of this, right over here, actually. And then after this, the scene where the werewolf attacks, where they find the flower, like I said, is on a soundstage, is on a set that they built. Now, I found all of these locations mainly from just coming out here and walking around and trying to line up things. I really love trying to line up rocks and mountains and just the landscape. It's harder, but it's more rewarding than just walking to a place and going, yep, that's the main character's house. Now, in this scene, the main characters can be seen walking right through that little V right there. The wind is really starting to pick up here on top of the mountain, but it's a beautiful day for this. It's a perfect day to come out here and track down these filming locations. Like I said, I'm the only person here, and I kind of feel like I have a whole planet to myself. With that being said, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure, this time traveling to 1935 Tibet. Well, Hollywood's version of Tibet in the movie Werewolf of London. Till next time, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day.